Hey guys, it's Mrs. Wallace. Hope everybody's doing okay. Just wanted to go over a couple of these questions. There were six of them. Thought we could just spend a little bit of time making sure that everyone is comfortable with the question. So good to see you, and we will just answer any questions that you have. Okay, this very first question is really much more of an informational type of question. And it really is a question that relates a lot to the market of monopolistic competition. Remember, everything that we're doing is monopolistic competition, even though the graph looks an awful lot like Monopoly, right? We know that the monopolistic competitor is very unique because they produce differentiated products, right? So, this idea of differentiation is really key to understanding monopolistic competition. And this question is asking if you were, moving into a market that was monopolistically competitive, how would you go about doing it? If you are doing a coffee shop, some dream of mine, I always wanted to have a little coffee stand. How would I do that? If I know that there's a lot of Starbucks in the town, there's maybe some Dunkin' Donuts, how could I differentiate? So I might be competing with some brands. I might have to figure out if I had a little bit of a local flair and I was one of a kind. That might be part of my charm. So, in terms of like the style of the product, I might be appealing to a market that generally doesn't go to Starbucks or doesn't want to pay for Starbucks. I could be competing more with, like, say, a 7-Eleven. There's a lot of ways I could kind of decide on, who my market is and pick a style to try to get into this coffee market. How can I create, my product a little bit differently? Dunkin' Donuts isn't necessarily a place where lots of people hang out and bring their laptops. Starbucks is. How have they created, the seating and whatnot, in order to do that? So differentiation is all about that. And, the way you can think about this, even though there's many more categories, is, what is the style of the product? How could I, kind of look at the way in which I distribute the product and the way in which the product is actually prepared in the way it looks, right? The Starbucks cup and some of that thing. I might also look at the quality of the product, right? So even within Starbucks, they're exploring ways in which they can branch out to a couple of new differentiated ideas. So Starbucks has this like upscale kind of, coffee spot where you can taste different things that are really high level coffee things. And maybe we see a variety of quality of the product change. There was a long time ago when McDonald's was just regular coffee and that was it. Now you can go to McDonald's and get a variety of kind of Frappuccino lookalikes. They have been working with the quality of the product and offering, many more choices. And of course, location always matters too. If you're going to do a coffee shop, maybe there's a space, that is really important. You could actually compete with some of your competitors based on location. The key idea here, of course, is that you're not competing on price. You're competing on a variety of other things based on your service, your distribution, the product, and your location. Okay, guys, so let us look at this one question about this restaurant owner. So we have this restaurant owner who's really interested in trying to expand her profits, and she has the idea that she's going to lower her price. And oftentimes that sounds like a good idea because you figure if you're a restaurant owner and you lower your price, maybe you'll actually get more demand. We know it's not always that simple because it depends on elasticity, of course. So this is monopolistic competition. We know that this is a firm that's in long run equilibrium. So she's profit maximizing. She's producing the number of meals that or seats in her restaurant. Where her quantity is being profit maximized. She's pricing at the demand curve. Okay. So here's her price. We also know that because ATC is going to be breaking even. She's going to be breaking even. I'm just kind of making a tangent point. That's not going to be minimum ATC. Minimum ATC will be where marginal cost is going to intersect ATC. but I'm kind of coming around like that. Okay, that should be a lot closer. That ATC curve should be really, closer to that demand curve. But assuming that those two were tangent to each other, this ATC curve is suggesting that, she's kind of breaking even. Her total revenues are equal to her total cost. If she decides to lower her price and actually produce, here on the demand curve, right? Is she going to be better off? Even though she increases her quantity, she's actually operating in the inelastic range of her demand curve, so that's a bad idea once her price goes down to there. She's also in a position where she was before profit maximizing. As soon as she picks a quantity that's greater than profit maximizing, she's in a position where her marginal revenue and her marginal costs are no longer the same. She's going to be at a quantity where her marginal costs are greater than her marginal revenues by a significant amount. So she should not do this. She's going to be making a loss. Okay, so here we have a gas station monopolistic competition. We know that each gas station is currently drawing a loss. Okay, so let's kind of figure out what that looks like. There's our demand curve, MR. Okay, we know that we have the MC, and because this is a loss, we'll kind of do the ATC like that. Draw the diagram for a typical gas station to show this in the short run, and we know that there is going to be a loss, right, of about here, so we could even shade that loss if we wanted to. It looks exactly the same as a monopoly. Monopolistic competition graphs exactly the same as monopoly. Sorry, there's my Q. In a separate diagram, show what will happen to the typical gas station in the long run. This is the part that makes monopolistic competition, and I'm going to graph it right on here, even though that's going to kind of be messy. Because there are losses, we know that some of the firms that are in this market will exit, okay, just as they did in perfect competition. When some firms exit, the gas station that we're graphing, this gas station right here, might actually see an increase in demand. So we'll see that demand curve shift to be tangent with ATC, and we'll see the MR curve here, okay? And you'll, have to kind of line up the MR equals MC point with where that new tangency is on the demand curve, but now we have a situation where at the new quantity, this is going to be a firm that's breaking even. What happens in the long run? We're going to have a firm that's breaking even because we had an increase in demand, and when the demand curve shifts, so does the MR curve, so our quantity has increased and our price has also changed as a result of that shift. Okay, guys, so here we're looking at this local hairdresser, and this local hairdresser is making a profit. So we have our demand curve, we have our MR curve, and here's our MC, right? And in this case, let's kind of have our ATC curve like this. And here we are at our quantity. This is our price right up here. And we can shade the profit, right? So this is a firm that's making a bit of a profit. Will they actually be able to retire in 5 years? Do you expect this to last? Okay, and the answer is always no, because there's profits, there's going to be entry. Lots of other hairdressers are coming into this market, all excited. What's going to happen in the long run? And similar to before, we're going to have a change up in the demand curve. Everything about monopolistic competition is connected to each firm's demand curve. And remember, this is one hairdresser. This is not the market. There is a market graph that's typical supply and demand. So what happens when there's entry to the market supply? It increases, right? But as a result of that market supply that increases, the number of firms that are coming in, the demand curve for this hairdresser is going to be affected. They're going to actually receive less demand, less of a market share, and we'll see the demand curve kind of shift up until the point where the firm is breaking even. And the MR curve will also shift. It's a little ugly to see. I didn't draw that really well, but the long run position for monopolistic competition, it's always the case that the long run is going to be breaking even. Okay, it doesn't mean it'll be efficient, but it'll be breaking even, not at minimum ATC, but breaking even. All right, let's look at Magnificent Blooms. Okay, so Magnificent Blooms, it is a florist, and they have a successful operation. Note, it does not say profit maximizing, it says successful. Okay, so we have a demand curve. Goodness gracious. Then we have an MR curve, okay? And if we note where the firm is actually producing, the ATC, let's say, is like this, okay? Where the firm is actually producing is at minimum ATC, okay? That firm that's producing here at minimum ATC, is it successful? Is it making a profit? Yes, it is. Is the marginal cost above marginal revenue? Yes, it is, right? So can we actually have this firm do better? Of course, they can produce the profit maximizing quantity. In that situation, they will be making this profit. In the other situation, they made a much skinnier, kind of dollar amount, even though they had more quantity. The idea is, can they increase their profit if they profit maximize? Yes. Okay, produce where MR equals MC. In the long run, could Magnificent Blooms increase its profits? No. They can't, because they will be only producing breaking even. That's the default position because of entry or exit. Even though they could be doing better, if they were still making profits, that's going to attract other firms to this market, and in the long run, they will be seeing the demand curve shift. They will be breaking even in the long run. Hey there again. This is the last question, and it relates to a comparison between perfect competition and monopolistic competition. So remember, in perfect competition, we have, that's kind of a funky looking graph, but let's see if I can do that a little bit better. We have an efficiency kind of trifecta, right? We know that perfect competition for the firm, remember, this is the market, this is the firm. The firm, in the long run, is allocatively efficient because price is equal to marginal cost. So it's producing allocatively efficient quantity. It's also producing the quantity where ATC is at a minimum. If we are to look at the monopolistic competitor in the long run, okay, so here's our demand, here's MR, and here's my MC. Now, if I go to do the long run, what I kind of want to do is look at profit maximizing quantity. Note on the demand curve where my ATC is going to be tangent, kind of like that. And this should be my minimum point. So if you kind of look at this as your long run for the monopolistic competitor, what do we have here? In the long run, what is happening to the price? Well, we know that because MR is less than demand, we're always going to get a price that's going to be a little bit higher in any imperfect competitor, monopolistic competition. So in the long run, the price is going to be higher because MR is less than demand. The price here is taken from the market, so the price is going to be lower in perfect competition. The average total cost of production, the ATC is definitely going to be lower in perfect competition because they're producing at minimum ATC. Despite the fact that this firm is breaking even, there is a minimum ATC all the way over here. The monopolistic competitor is not producing at minimum ATC when they are breaking even in the long run. What about the efficiency of the market outcome? Well, the market outcome in perfect competition is going to be allocatively efficient. Price equals marginal cost, maximize consumer and producer surplus, no deadweight loss. In this model, we have not the allocatively efficient quantity. That would be right here. We do have deadweight loss of right here. So the efficiency of the market they are not the same. So there's a lot of differences between monopolistic competition and perfect competition. The one thing that is the same is the typical firm's profit in the long run. In the long run, the perfect competitor is going to make normal profit. The typical competitor in monopolistic competition makes normal profit. Okay, guys, I hope that helps. Have a good rest of the day.